And Glen McGregor, our senior political correspondent. Glen, I mean, Jim Carr, cabinet minister, natural resources minister, and always seemed like a nice guy.
Somebody who was super well regarded by his colleagues in the House of Commons. I know that's almost a cliche that we often hear that after a member of Parliament dies. In this case, it was genuinely true. He was extremely well liked. Gentleman Jim, some people called him. He was just a very kind, quiet manner, but also an effective politician in his time. He served at the federal level as Minister of Natural Resources, a really key portfolio, and also international trade before he started to show real signs of serious illness. And then in 2019, when the Liberals lost all the representation in Alberta and Saskatchewan, you remember Ralph Goodale was their sole member from Saskatchewan. They had no MPs on the prairies other than Jim Carr and Kevin Lamoureux, I believe was the other one from Manitoba. So he kind of took on the role as the prairies envoy in cabinet, even though he was, I think at that time was beginning to become sick. So a big loss for the House of Commons, not so much the government. It's just going to be a lot of people really liked Jim Carr. And had a lot of respect for him, and it's going to be obviously at a young age that he died, 71. Particularly sad this soon before the holidays.
Yeah, and I think you raised some great points. I mean, very classy and a gentleman. And also, that was a tricky portfolio, natural resources, especially at the time, the Trudeau government coming in. And there was a lot of anger, particularly in Alberta and Saskatchewan, at Jim Carr and also at the government over different initiatives that were brought forth. And, he tried to always handle that portfolio, listening, being understanding, but still, of course, supporting the Trudeau government's vision.
Yeah, you remember the Trudeau government early in its mandate after the 2015 election went to Paris and signed on to the Paris Accord and made it clear their intention to impose carbon pricing across the country on provinces that didn't want to play along, that didn't have carbon pricing already in place. Crucially, that meant Saskatchewan and also later Alberta. So he had to be kind of the front man for that. And for somebody from Western Canada, that's not a popular position to be in when so much of the economy from that region is dependent on the oil and gas sector. So he was immediately thrust into a role of conflict in that job, dealing with the premiers on the carbon backstop that was eventually put in place. So but I mean, to his credit though, was still very well regarded by them and also by Conservative opposition in the House of Commons, who would have been grilling him on this on a regular basis in question period because of their opposition to carbon pricing being imposed by the federal government. So he leaves obviously a very impressive legacy here as an MP. Also now his death obviously means that there's going to be by-election at some point. We're already seeing a by-election tonight in another riding to replace a Liberal MP who has resigned, but that'll be something that will be much further down the road, Todd.
Yeah, I thought it was also interesting. We're just going to bring up a statement, too, that has been issued by Jim Carr's family. And just reading in part, Glenn, I know you've had a chance to look at this, too, that, he had been battling multiple myeloma and kidney failure since 2019. He was getting dialysis, chemotherapy, bone marrow transplant as well, and he continued, of course, to represent the riding in Winnipeg as he had done prior to that. And, what's interesting, too, about Jim Carr is, first of all, he was a provincial politician, Glenn, as you know, in Manitoba. And then he took time out of politics, for a good, about almost 22, 23 years, give or take, from the, early 90s right through to the mid 2015, 14, when he announced he would get back into politics, this time on a federal level.
Right. Yeah, and he was really instrumental in leading the Liberal campaign effort in Manitoba. That is a province, unlike Saskatchewan and Alberta, where the Liberals are competitive in many seats, especially in and around Winnipeg. So he was key. And I remember seeing him on the last election campaign in 2021. I was on the Prime Minister's, or the Liberal leaders tour, as we called it then, when it made a stop in Winnipeg, and there was an outdoor barbecue event one evening, and Mr. Carr came out, and he was obviously very sick. He looked did not look well, but he was jovial, and he knew everybody there, and he was kind of going around saying hi to everybody, and he knew all the journalists too. And he came up to us, and I think he recognized that people who were seeing him, who hadn't seen him in a while, were going to be taken aback by his appearance because of the effects of his illness and probably also from the treatment. But he was in really good spirits, and he was enjoying himself at this campaign event in downtown Winnipeg, and that's how I remember him.
Yeah, and the other last thing, Glenn, is someone think of a centrist, I think, had a lot of ties to the business community, and often talked about, healthcare challenges that Manitoba was facing and the idea of trying to cut costs. So this guy was not sort of a lefty, as some critics would call the Trudeau government. I mean, he really prided himself on being a centrist.
He did, and that background made him well suited to the portfolios that Justin Trudeau asked him to fill, both in international trade, of course, a very business-facing portfolio, and also in natural resources. And I mean that's kind of the loss for politically for the Trudeau government, is losing somebody who had that stature and respect in the business community, but was also so integrated into Manitoba politics. He will be somebody who will be difficult to replace in that role.
Glen McGregor in Ottawa, Jim Carr passing away at the age of 71. Thank you for this, Glen.